What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, two-time Canadian Ethnic Media Association award winner, 2020 for Best Podcast News podcast. And in 2018, I received the award for achievement with the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. That's their second highest award next to their lifetime achievement. I'm not that old yet. I may get there, but I'm not that old yet. And I'm not the star of the show today. I also once a month host the only conversation for dads and fathers in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. And it's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. I'm done for today because I'm not the star of the show. I'm playing Vanna today. For those people who know who Vanna is, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Andrea Pierce.
Thank you, Dr. Vibe. But we really want to thank you for hosting us today. And I particularly want to thank the OSME, the Office of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise with the federal government Procurement Canada team that are here to share with you how to do business with the federal government. I want to thank the UNDPAD Push Coalition for advancing this effort with the government over the last several years in looking to implement policies to do a procurement set aside for Black communities, similar to one that's already in place for Aboriginal, the Aboriginal community here in Canada. The government has also set targets for women in Canada as well. And of course, the United States have been doing this since the 70s. So we're really excited. Louis here and his team has been working with us for quite a while. I really appreciate them working with us and being interested in the Black community, helping Black businesses, Black-owned businesses since before the Black Lives Matter recent interest in our community. So I do want to thank them for that they've been consistent in dealing with us. And we appreciate the pilots that has just been in place now for Black communities. It's the first and a start. And as we go, we'll be collecting data and looking at what we can do to improve the process as we move towards developing the policy, requesting that of the federal government. I know their team have been diligent. They've done some really interesting things. I love the search they've done for us so that you can register and make it easier, because I know when I went in and look at tenders, it's pretty hard to sort through all. So thank you, Louis, for doing that, and Ariane and Ale and your whole team. So I'll turn it over to you now to go further.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrea, for your enthusiastic interest in getting this discussion arranged. We're extremely excited to be here with all of you. Thank you to Dr. Vibe for providing the platform to the event. Thank you, sir. And thank you, of course, to all of you for attending. I know that as a small business owner or just leading any small business, you don't exactly have a ton of time to sit in front of the computer listening to people talk at you. So, this is an investment, and we really do appreciate and respect that. And so hopefully this will provide a lot of value for all of you attending today. So just before we get into the content, just in terms of timing, I'll give a little introduction as to who we are and what we're trying to do here. My colleague, Oriane Simot, will then provide a bit of perspective on how our office supports diverse suppliers. My colleague Alain Martel will run through what we call our myth-busting presentation, which we'll talk about in a second. And all of that should really take about 20 to 30 minutes at the most. We have a lot of time for questions and answers at the end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to address them afterwards in panel discussion. And also, I believe that this discussion will be available online for viewing for a few weeks afterwards. So no need to scribble furiously any notes. Just please listen and be regaled by our presentation, of course. So, really, we are here to talk about opportunities. In this case, it's really about doing business with the government of Canada. And overall, if there's one thing that you'll remember, please, it's that it's probably not nearly as bad as you think, which is not high praise, I realize, but especially with the right resources at your disposal, that's where you can really make a difference, I think, in looking at and jumping on opportunities that make sense for you as a business owner. And that's really where our team comes in. We are there to help and support, and I'll really talk about that in a moment. So Dr. Vibe, if you wouldn't mind putting up the PowerPoint, please. All right, just move on to the second slide. There we go. So, there we go. The team, as I said, so my name is Louis-Martin Parent. I'm the regional director for the National Capital Region for OSME, and I'll explain what that means in a second. On our call today is Alain Martel, who's a stakeholder engagement specialist. He's behind the black curtain. He's having a bit of video issues, but he'll be happy to jump in a moment. We have Oriane Simot, who's our engagement specialist, and also not on the video, but he's a key part of the team, is Stéphane Champagne, who's a supply specialist, who will be running the next presentation that we hope to do in a couple of weeks. So that's basically our little team. If you go to the next slide, there we go. Thank you. So really, our office, the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises, or OSME, we were started in 2005, quite simply because at the time, especially, if you're a small business, doing any sort of business with the government of Canada was not easy. It was hard to understand what to do, how to do it, what we were supposed to be buying and all that. And so there's been a lot of work done over the last 15, 20 years to make sure that, it's better. And we'll say it's fixed, of course. That's a bit of a tall claim, but at the same time, we're really there purely and simply to support small businesses in their attempts to do business with the government of Canada. And really what that means is OSME has two roles. One is the outreach side, and that's the direct assistance, and we'll talk about that in a little while, but it really is the education and assistance and support, like literally through webinars like this or through one-on-one conversations, like where we sit down with you and we help you. And where we actually get you to understand for example, that it's not just one buyer. The government isn't just one buyer. It's many, many different departments and agencies. There's many different ways for the government to buy various goods and services. And all those little bits and pieces that I will touch on in a little while, these are things that we try to help you understand and position yourself properly. So really, that at the end, you become what we call bid ready. So really, all the way from, one day you get up in the morning and you say, you know what? I wonder if I could sell my stuff to the government of Canada, all the way to, how to bid, you're registered to bid, who buys your products and services, and all little bits and pieces that are relevant to you specifically as a business owner, because there's many different pieces to procurement. And by the way, when I say procurement, all I mean is how the government buys goods and services. That's just a fancy word for that. So basically, you are bid ready to jump on opportunities. So that's the outreach side. Now the in-reach side, which isn't really relevant to this conversation, but I really want to make sure the point is made, is that we talk to the government. So we provide the supplier, and more specifically in this case, the diverse suppliers, feedback to senior management, to procurement folks, to politicians, and everyone else that will basically sit down with us so that they understand how to make procurement accessible to small suppliers. And it's really, really important for us, as a government, just generally, but just, in terms of supporting the Canadian economy. This is very important that, it is small businesses really make up the vast majority of the economy. Well, it's important for us to make sure that we hear you and we reflect that information internally to government. So that's the outreach and the in-reach. If you go to the next slide, the outreach especially is really directed through our 6 regional offices. So we have our Pacific team, our Western team, we have our office in Ontario, in Toronto, we have ours in the National Capital Region, which you see our team here, as well as Quebec and the Atlantic provinces. And really, whereas, these days, being virtual is perhaps less of, being on the ground is perhaps less important. Just generally speaking, our regional offices allow us to be plugged into the local conversations. It's very easy for us to be, in the Ottawa bubble, so to speak, or say the Toronto bubble or whatever. But our offices across the country are really plugged into those local conversations. And when all of this crazy coronavirus stuff is over, you can actually walk into one of our offices and just sit down with us and have a chat about procurement and just get some education and support. So that's why we have our regional offices. So I'm going to pass the mic over. I've done my little spiel here. So I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Oriane Simot, who joined OSME full-time, I believe, in 2019. And I thought it'd be good to get her perspective regarding the Government Canada's efforts to improve its outreach and how we're really trying to be more proactive in reaching out to various communities. Oriane, why don't you jump in?
Need to unmute myself. There we go. So hello, everyone. My name is Oriane. As we said, thank you, Louis, my awesome director. So I joined OSME in 2019, right after graduating. Thank God. So I got a job in the office right after school, but I was working with OSME before as a student. So as a student, my job was do your job, go to school, that's it. So I didn't get the sense of what OSME really was doing, even though I knew the basics. So while starting my actual job in 2019, after school. So that's how I really went on the field, went to event, trade shows, and actually had a sense of what do people think about OSME? Do they even know us? And it was shocking that some people didn't and don't know us or what the government offers, what the government can buy. And that's one of the reasons, as we said, outreach is to educate people, is to tell them, we're here to help you. And my colleague Alain will talk about it later on, is that the procurement process, wants to be and is inclusive. We really want to reach out to various diversity communities, whether they are Indigenous or the Black community or women even. So what we did, we tried to do more and more engagement with those various communities. Actually went to an event. It's called Highland. No publicity here. So I went to an event, a trade show, and I was at the booth as an exhibitor and talking to people, and the event is so multicultural. So it's multicultural, so a lot of diversity, which is good for this topic. So I was talking to every single person. Have you heard of OSME? Do you know what we do? Do you sell to the government? And people were shocked that the government buys. People were extremely shocked. And I was shocked myself that they're shocked too, because I was like, well, I thought it was obvious, but no, people don't know that the government can buy their services. And pretty much, especially with the diversity, most of us, because I'm Black too, are part of the community. So most of them, they don't sell ships, they don't sell boats, they don't sell, stuff from the army, those big stuff that we see on TVs, on the news. We have catering, we have, chairs to sell, we have services, cleaning services, we have nursing. That's why we offer services most of the time. And we think the government doesn't buy, which is, Alain, and again, Alain will say that later, it's wrong, because that person was offering catering, that person that I talked to at that event, and she told me that, no, I'm doing catering and the government doesn't buy. Straight up, she told me that. And I said, well, we do. We actually buy services like catering. And I remember the pilot we had for the Ottawa region. We created a pilot for catering based on the diversity, whether they are women or Black community. Specifically, that one was for women. So we kind of gather all the catering services or organizations that were out there in the Ottawa region. And then when we had an event or when we wanted their services, we would just go through the list and choose which of them will meet our criteria. And that's what we did. I personally used that list myself for an event that we were planning. Went to the list, contacted those organizations, those companies, and say, okay, do you offer this? It's really a conversation. Do you offer croissant? Do you offer brownies? Do you do that? What price? literally is just that. It's really basic, but I felt like I'm putting my input. It's something that is good. It's something that we want people to know that we're doing, to be aware that they can sell their services or their goods to us, and that we want to buy from them. So I just wanted to share that personal experience. Maybe it's not your case, maybe it is. I just wanted to let you know that yes, you can sell your services or goods to the government, and my colleague Alain will say more about that. So that's just a story that I wanted to share. Hopefully, you took something from it, and hopefully you learned. Thank you.
Thank I'm just going to jump in very, very quickly, and then I'll pass the mic over to Alain. To what Oriane was saying, sometimes, big changes are needed. Of course, I think the case has been made pretty clearly in the public square that we need some pretty big changes, just generally speaking, in society sometimes. But also sometimes it's like a very, very small change, right? Like the catering pilot that we ran in the Ottawa region, just to get people involved in procurement. And this is kind of the thing that OSME really tries to push, both the big changes and the small changes. But when we're talking about the big changes, last fall, the Government of Canada committed to better help Black business owners and entrepreneurs. So, we're really looking to increase the representation of suppliers from diverse groups, including Canadian Black owned and led small businesses in federal procurement. So that means there's a whole bunch of different projects, from seeing what business capacity is out there now, to education funds and entrepreneurship funds and all the rest of it. But the one that I want to mention was something that Andrea mentioned earlier during our presentation here, was the procurement pilot for Black owned and operated businesses. So earlier this week, there were 7 opportunities that were posted in different parts of the country. And we, OSME, share that information to our networks, which of course includes Andrea, of course, stands to reason, who I believe has shared the information or will share the information shortly. So make sure you take a look at her emails and take a look at those links to see if those opportunities line up with something that you'd be interested in. But I just want to be clear here, that really is not meant to be the endpoint of our Government of Canada support to the community. It's not like we're not kind of patting ourselves on the back here to say, wow, good job, Government of Canada. This is really a starting point for us in terms of better understanding how to support communities with procurement. Of course, this is the conversation that we're in. So this is really just a starting point for that kind of work. So now, finally, I will pass the mic over to Alain to talk about the myth-busting presentation. And really, this is a series of presentations that we do. So we do a series of presentations on a regular basis. Some are more specific and technical, some are broad. But this one really is like the intro to the intro. It's really just meant to give you a sense of what we mean when we say procurement, and what, just kind of bust some myths, basically. So without further ado, finally, I will pass the mic over to Alain.
Thank you. If you want to bring up the next slide, please, that'd be great. So let's start with, what is the opportunity here for suppliers? Each year, the Government of Canada spends billions of dollars by awarding hundreds of thousands of contracts and making well over 1 million direct credit card purchases. This represents a tremendous opportunity for small and medium enterprises. So why aren't more smaller Canadian companies taking advantage of these opportunities? One of the best parts of my job is that I get to engage with the small business community and hear their concerns. And when I ask them, they say that they have considered selling to the Government of Canada, but there's some common answers that I get. The government isn't interested in what we sell. The government only buys from big corporations. We're too small to compete. It's too complicated. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not. Next slide, please. So the government doesn't buy from smaller business. Well, I have to tell you, around 90% of the government contracts awarded each year are valued under 25K, which means there's tremendous opportunity there. We do direct purchases from vendors valued under $10,000. Last year, there was over $500 million of those contracts awarded. Next slide. One of the myths is that the government doesn't buy from businesses like mine. Although we believe in inclusive product, all suppliers must have an equal chance of doing business with us. So that includes looking at things like green and clean tech, woman-owned and woman-led businesses, underrepresented groups, Indigenous peoples, new Canadians, social enterprises. So we're trying to cover basically all of the opportunities that are available out there for small, medium enterprises. Next slide. Oh, this is a good one. Good myth that the government procurement is difficult and time-consuming. It used to be. All procurements for us must be open, fair, and transparent, and we are governed by federal laws and regulation that the Treasury Board presents to us. But we're trying very, very hard to make procurement more accessible. We're looking at a new electronic procurement system. We have gotten an electronic big submission now. We've also looked at our payment schedule. It used to be 30 days. We're trying to reduce that now to 15 days. And most importantly, we're looking at our contracts and want to put those back in plain English so that people understand exactly what our terms and conditions are. And because of this, we are the small medium enterprise, the Office of Small Medium Enterprise. One of the things that we try to do mostly is to reduce the barriers to enter into the government procurement. Next slide, please. One of the things that we say the government, or that we hear, is that government procurement is centralized. Well, you might be surprised to hear that most departments have now got delegation of authority. They can buy their own goods up to $25,000 or services up to $40,000. So we, Public Services and Procurement Canada, basically focus on larger and more complex contracts, so in $1 million. But there is 100 and some departments out there that can do their own buying directly from suppliers. So that's a myth that needs to be put asleep. Next one, slide please. I think
you skipped one there. We can go back one.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so when we talk about the procurement, we always try to be competitive. That is, we always ask for 2 or 3 quotes to see how things are compared, but our main focus is to get best value for the Government of Canada. And we use a variety of methods. You've probably heard of standing offers or supply arrangements, tenders. We try to use as many different methods that we can to go out there and buy. Also, our tenders are published on our website, Buy and Sell, which we'll talk about in a minute. But every tender indicates how the government intends to buy the good or the service. So we're trying to make it very clear and very specific as to what we're looking for. Next slide, please. So low dollar value procurement, the majority of low dollar contracts are awarded using a competitive process, like I just mentioned. There is non-competitive approaches that can be used. If we're in an emergency situation, like we are today, we can go and purchase vaccines, for example, and we still try to be competitive. We use best value and obtain best value for Canadians. And we identify suppliers through our own networks, doing our own research, and we have, of course, our supplier registration information system that we can use as well. Next slide, please. So this is our site, the buyandsell.gc.ca. It's the site that publishes most of the opportunities of the federal government. You can find out what the government buys and what you can sell. You can search for your competitors. You can search for goods or services that you sell. If you find those, then the government could be a potential client for you. But I invite you to go and have a look at the Buy and Sell website. It's a very informative site. We've made it intuitive in that it's got logos there that'll take you directly to the tender, and you'll see a lot of what the government opportunities are. There's also, if you want to book a seminar or webinar, you can do so on the site. But it's full of information for suppliers. And if you have a problem, we can certainly guide you through that. We have one-on-one sessions where we can actually go through it and show you exactly how to go about using the site. Next, please. So we talked about we're trying to make it easier for businesses to do business with the government. So we're introducing an electronic procurement solution, which is moving forward right now. So we're moving federal procurement online and changing the way the government and suppliers interact to buy and sell goods and services. We're going to be eventually changing our buyandSell.gc.ca site to CanadaBuysCanada.ca, and it will gradually replace the buy and sell website. So registered suppliers will receive email invitations to register in the SAP Ariba, that's the new electronic procurement site, through Canada Buys. Next slide. So during that transition, you may be able to bid on some tender opportunities through the electronic procurement solution on the SAP Ariba web-based tool accessible at Canada Buys. Each procurement opportunity will clearly detail the delivery method to be used to submit a bid. And you can check the event calendar on the buy and sell right now for upcoming seminars as well. Next slide, please. So OSME offers all kinds of services, seminars, webinars like we're doing today. We also offer a seminar on how to register your business and find opportunities. We're open to one-on-one meetings to provide more personalized support for your business. We have an information line that Andrea mentioned before, the 1-800 number. It can be used for questions related to procurement, and of course the buy and sell website, and our office, the Office of the Small and Medium Enterprise, that you can reach us through Canada.ca/OSME. Next, please.
There you go.
There you go.
So, Ashley, if I can jump in here, Dr. Vibe, would you mind going back to slide 9? I think it was an important one that we glitched over quickly, because it's an important point. I think that, I think you just had it there. I think that's, there we go. Yeah, so Alain, would you mind jumping back in to you know, kind of to get that message across, because this is an important one, I think.
Well, yeah, it's a myth. The government doesn't buy what I sell. We buy just about everything, from technology to military goods and services, property, professional services, construction, and so much more. I mean, Oriane mentioned catering services, things like snow removal and landscaping. We even buy dogs for the RCMP and correctional services, and dog grooming, clothing, and shower curtains. So you can see that there's tremendous opportunity here for small, medium enterprise to get in on some of these buys. And that's the point that we want to get across.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Alain. And so Alain is one of our experts in terms of outreach into communities, but also providing that guidance to suppliers, just like as he did, but also the one-on-ones especially as well, to sit down with you, based on your specific situation. If you're a newcomer to procurement, maybe you've tried to bid on contracts and just hasn't worked out for you. We can kind of maybe help you on that front. So it's an extremely important service to I know a lot of suppliers. So that's basically it in terms of our overview. I'm going to pass the mic back to Andre here, but honestly, overall, as I said, we are here to support and assist Canadian small businesses, especially in this case, Canadian Black owned and led small businesses. It's really important for us to make sure that you have, a fighting chance at these contracts. And, maybe in the past, you might not have thought that it was something that was really up your alley, but as you saw, there's so much opportunity there. This is not us, congratulating ourselves, but we do spend a fair amount of money to run our operations. And so that requires us buying from largely Canadian suppliers. And that honestly could be you, depending on this, the contract and the field and where you are and all that. We'd be happy to do business with you, and more suppliers, more small suppliers especially. This is something that we're really trying to do. So Andrea, please.
So there's some questions on Facebook, and one of them is, how do we get on the list? And is there a cost to be on the supplier list? And the person offers cleaning services. It's from Tony Jacobs.
So I'll give that one to you, but I think the thing we need to understand, and that's part of the education process that we give, is there's not one list. There's literally many, many, many lists. And I guess that's part of the confusion, but that's also something that we help you with based on what you do. We say, okay, this is the way in which, the government buys your good or service. So we help you with that process, not all the process, because you don't care about the rest. You care about that specific process. There's no cost other than your time, of course, and all that very, very important stuff. Generally, so there's no cost to be on it. There's criteria, of course, to be on certain lists. There's IT lists, for example, of major projects. You have major IT projects, like multi-billion-dollar projects. Those have certain pretty high-level criteria, high-level standards that you need to comply with to actually be on the list. Alain, is there anything that I'm missing in terms of an answer on that front?
No, just that the first thing that you need to do is to register yourself as a supplier to get on that list. And we can do that through our office or through using the 1-800 number, which I'd be more than happy to provide to you. If you want to shoot me an email, it's alain.martel@pwgsc.gc.ca, and I'll be more than happy to help anybody out.
Yeah.
And actually, sorry, Andrea, on that point as well, we should have mentioned. So this session was the myth busting, like I said, the intro to the intro. In 2 weeks, Andrea, I believe, has already sent out an invite for the next session, which really is the more complete presentation, as I mentioned before. But the next day after that, on the 29th, I believe, is what we called our SRI registration workshop, where literally all you need to go in with is your business number, your Canada business number, and you basically we help you get registered on our what we call our SRI registration list, basically to get the process going, and to set yourself up. Importantly, so you get notifications whenever there are opportunities that fall into your window. So there's ways to kind of set that up properly. So you can of course do it yourself. It's some people find it easy, some people don't. Andrea's shaking her head. But we are absolutely there to help you and assist you with that process whenever you need it.
Yes. Mark Cyril asked about how can someone book a one-on-one session to go through the site?
Quite simply, email us. So if you go on that site, the canada.ca/OSME, you will find links to our webinars and all that. But also you'll find contact information. So we all, of course, have generic email addresses and phone numbers and whatnot. So we are very reachable. So honestly, it's just as simple as sending us an email. And I'm sure as part of the links after the that are shared after this presentation, you can absolutely reach out to me, and I'll be happy to set that up for you, or just call our journal numbers. There's many different ways in which to set that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andrea, I'm just gonna interrupt you a bit because I'm gonna just follow up with you, Andrea, because we also have some questions from YouTube also.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna put them here. So Sabiso, and if I got your name wrong, it's my head, not my heart, says, thank you so much for the presentation. Does the government buy books? I'm a children's book author.
That is interesting. Have you heard of buying specific books? I mean, presumably
Not,
we do.
I'm sure we buy books for sure. I mean, we have a internal library, so yes, I think we do buy books. It would just be a matter of researching whether they're very specific to you.
Yeah, and actually, that's a good point on the research side. Oftentimes, a huge part of the unknown is who buys your goods or your services, right? And so let's say, for example, so we have the government has what we call pre-qualified lists. So, say we're buying a box of pens or something like that, or like a whole, a new computer or something like that. You generally don't want to have a whole procurement process for that. Generally speaking, people know what they want to buy. They want to have a list, and they just buy from the list, right? So that's what we call a pre-qualified list. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of lists, and I'm not going to get into the details. But oftentimes people think they get on the list and then they'll just get the contracts, and that's not really just how life goes. People have to know that you're out there, right? So there are, I'm sure, departments that might buy, specifically the kinds of books that you provide. But part of the question is knowing which department or who within those departments would buy your specific goods or services, and that's something that we actually can guide you. Obviously, we don't sell on your behalf. We don't say, okay, buy from this person because I like their face. It's not something that would work. But we do try to open the door for you to say, look, those are the departments that buy your stuff. They're the ones who are more involved in buying, books or services or whatever the case may be. So that's a conversation as well that I think oftentimes suppliers benefit from.
All right. We also have here looking for information on how to register business resources and free support for small business. I think you're the folks to go to, I guess.
I mean, we could run through the presentation as well if you'd like, but it's no, honestly, I totally understand how sometimes it might seem like I want to get into this. I just have no idea how. That huge gap is literally why we're there. And so, if you'd like to register for our webinars on the information that we can share afterwards, we can have a direct link to our event calendar, which is all of our free webinars that we have, that we OSME as a whole have. Like I say, there's the one that we presented today, but also there's many other ones that are more specific. So there's that. But like I say, just reach out and we're happy to chat.
Excellent. Have another comment here. Thank you for this. Any idea if this procurement pilot for Black-owned businesses gets trickled down to the provincial government?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. Well,
Yeah.
So, and if you want to have any thoughts, please jump in. But I mean, our efforts are at the federal level, of course. But I wouldn't think for a second that we're the only ones doing any targeted outreach for the Black community. Now, there's one thing I should mention. I kind of alluded to it, and I don't want to get too much into this because there's a lot of technicalities or whatever. But in the past, there's a reason why the government of Canada or any governments in Canada didn't really specifically target procurements to a specific industry or a specific community. There's rules and trade agreements and everything else that kind of come into it, which kind of limited what we thought we could do. So now what we're doing is we're trying to be a bit more audacious is not the right word, but we're trying to, have pilots that try new things that meet suppliers more on where they're coming from, and not just assume that everybody's just going to learn about procurement, and it's going to be great, and everybody's going to just come and buy from us. And so I don't think for one second that the federal government is the only one doing that kind of thing. I would absolutely assume that the provincial governments are doing that as well. Unfortunately, I don't have much more information than that on which government is doing what, but I do know that this is an important file, as I'm sure this is not news for anyone, for many governments across the country.
I do want to say that the provincial government does do some procurements like that, and you have to be certified as a minority-owned business, an Aboriginal-owned business, a women-owned business, or a LGBTQ-owned business. And one of the organization you can use is CAMC. It's the Council for Aboriginal and CAMSC organization that will certify you. And interestingly enough, when you get certified with CAMC, CAMSC is their acronym. You're also certified in the U.S. as a minority-owned business as well, so you can do business in the U.S. Interestingly enough, I do want to say, Dr. Vibe, I've put the buy and sell event calendar, and I've also put Alain. I'm embarrassed. I put his email address. He's probably going to be sorry that he said that. Here's the generic, if you can share the generic contact as well as the calendar with.
Okay, well, there's his email address for the whole world. Don't
Oh,
pile
There you
his
go.
email box up,
oh,
okay?
I'm so
All right,
sorry.
don't pile his email
I'm
box
so sorry, Ellen.
up. All right, Ellen. No wonder and we don't want. No, you're smart. You're not showing your face, so they can't
There
come
you go.
after. They don't know what you look like, right? That's a good thing. All right, let's get back to some more comments here. So we have a question here. I only arrived a few minutes ago to watch the video. Sorry, but is there an amount under which there is no public bidding when offering services? Sorry if this was already explained.
That's an excellent question. Annie, why don't you jump in?
Hang on a minute. I lost the question. I'm sorry.
Okay, no. I can
There
actually
we
put
go.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there an amount under which there is no public bidding when offering services? I'm not aware that there is.
So there are rules around which, thresholds at which we can, where we need to basically call for bids, right? So the easiest one is $25,000
for goods, and then services
yes.
would be $40,000.
That's right. So basically, the rules the rules force us to call for bids, as Anne mentioned. But there are exceptions because this is government. Like for example, in emergencies, or when the value of the thing that we were buying is less than what we were saying, the 25,000, the 40,000. Because in situations like that, it makes no sense. Like if I'm buying a computer that's like $1,000, I shouldn't need to put out a whole month-long process to buy a computer, right? Like I should just be able to buy the computer. So basically the approach is we need to make things competitive and get suppliers a chance to bid on things, but there's exceptions based on situations. And again, as Anne said, a lot of the purchases that we do, just because that's just the way things are actually under those thresholds. So you might not know of those opportunities. So that's where we can help you with the marketing and knowing who buys the kind of things that you buy. And all that information is on our website. So if you're the kind of person that loves to just do a deep dive on websites, believe me, it's all there. You just need to kind of dig into it. But if you're a sane human being, you might actually benefit from having some support and guidance, which again, we're happy to do it.
If I can jump in, I have a short story to share. Really short. It's about that topic exactly. So most of our even services are bought from credit cards. So it's just a purchase of credit card, and I have a great example because I was the one buying it. So we were looking for the team. We were looking for banners. Tabletop banners, and we didn't publish any tender. We didn't go to the whole process of publishing a tender for that. I just went on Google. Literally, I went on Google, typed tabletop banners, found some companies around the NCR region who offer that kind of services. I picked one. Literally, I picked based on their picture and the reviews from people who use the service. Literally, that's what I did. And then I contacted 3 of them. Ask them question, what do you offer? Can you offer this? I have a sample. How much is it? Compare the price, chose one. That's it. He offered a service. He gave me the sample. I was happy. I paid credit card. That was it. So something like that, you won't find that on the buy and sell because it's just through credit card. That was my story.
There we go. No, thank you for the story. And for anyone who's watching this live on the replay, there's the generic email address for the team and the phone number. So it's right there. I've had it up for the last few moments. So if you don't catch it, catch the replay, screenshot it right now because we're moving forward. So just want to make sure, and thank you for providing that, Ariane, that information. I appreciate that. Thank you. And for the story. All right. So we got another question here. Are there small-scale IT services offered to the government or only big projects?
Oh, I mean, Alain, do you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, there's all kinds of IT services that we're looking for. You need to get yourself qualified under our supply arrangement. And once you're there, you can go ahead and bid on the opportunities are there, but they vary. It could be for a couple of days of professional services, or we're looking for a specific task that we want you to perform. There's a variety available, so we'd have to have a more in-depth discussion on this.
That's right. So sometimes it's a question of we need a programmer of some kind, or sometimes we need a project. We need somebody to build a thing for us, right? So it really depends on the kind of services you might offer. But yeah, the short answer to your question is yes, we buy a fair bit of IT services, and honestly, there's lists and lists and lists. So we're happy to point you in the right direction of the kinds of things that you supply, and kind of help you get set up on that front.
Okay.
So a lot of Black businesses, Louis and Alain, is centered in the professional services.
Right.
And, of course, many reasons for that is the barriers to entries are low and the cost of entries are low, right? So on the service side, we have like a lot of IT, we have janitorial, property management, a lot of consulting, whether it's IT or other management consulting and diversity consulting and that kind of stuff. So could you speak a little bit to that and how people, as small business could access that and give an example of like a low dollar value contract, since that's generally where our businesses would fit in.
Okay,
Alain, do you want to jump in?
Sure. There's 104 different departments in the government, right? So it's a bit of a sales job to get there.
Yes.
But IT services are required, and they established what they call a professional services supply arrangement. And under that, there's a whole pile of categories where you get yourself qualified to bid on IT contracts. So that is a step that you need to look at. There's a page on our buy and sell website that is dedicated to professional services, and they walk you right through how to get yourself registered, what categories you qualify yourself into, and so on. So short answer is it's not all that easy, but we certainly can help you get there. There's also, coming down the road, we're going to offer a professional services seminar so that we can actually get people signed up and going with this. Louis, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Annie. That's exactly where I was going. So as I said, without getting too generic or whatever, we have so many different lists, but one chunk of those categories is what we call pro services. It's like that's the tool, and under that are, I think, 7 or 8 different IT streams, and then 7 or 8 different non-IT streams, including stuff like nursing. So like really it's a question of finding out exactly what are the things that you do really, and finding out what things in pro services are lined up with that category of thing that you do. Now, really, the pro services lists are for those that are the smaller dollar value contracts. That's the one that a lot of small businesses start off with, because it really is the.
Can't hear you.
Aha. There we go. I muted myself. No. So the pro services list is really where a lot of small suppliers start off with, because that is literally like, I need a supplier or I need a programmer for 3 months. And that's like, there's a specific, subcategory for that. So again, it's really just a question of knowing what the field is and what the options are and where you fit into those categories.
Wonderful. Excellent.
I had another, before you go on, because when I was on, in working with you guys and advocating for the Black community, I try to try everything out myself and try to figure it out on my own and give you guys the feedback. But one thing I noticed, and maybe you could speak a little bit to this, if somebody doesn't feel like they're ready to bid on a project, I saw where you could become a joint venture or partner with somebody. Could you talk a little bit to that? Because that will give people more opportunities as well to to partner with people to sell what they have, in addition to selling directly to you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and please correct me if I'm wrong or add to what I'm going to say.
Sure.
Depending on your industry, it may be a case where your better option might be a subcontractor to a bigger company. It may, like if you're in construction, for example, really generally speaking, there's only like a couple of big construction firms, and then you are, a subcontractor to that firm. And honestly, that avoids any sort of direct dealing with the government, which is sometimes maybe a positive. So it really is a question of, again, a question of the industry in terms of subcontracting, or being a sub to a subcontractor, or as you were saying, Andrea, sometimes if you are a business that provides a certain kind of service or certain types of services or whatever, and you see a contract come up where you are able to provide some of the requirements, but not all, but of another firm or like a contact or whatever that also provides the other half, you can actually do a joint bid. That doesn't mean that you are actually officially joining companies. It just means that you are doing a joint bid. And we actually have some tools to help you do the joint bids together. Of course, in those kind of situations, you kind of need to have a certain amount of trust with the other firm, and there's all those questions, of course. But there absolutely is in many different situations, examples of companies joint bidding. I mean, from all the way up to like massive projects like the Ottawa LRT. It's not one company that won the contract. It's a consortium of companies that won the contract, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also down to various, construction contracts or IT contracts. It's, however the bid is compliant and provides the best value for Canadians. It doesn't really matter if it's one company or the other or multiple. It's as long as the bid is compliant. Annie, is there anything that I?
No, that's perfect. You nailed it on the head.
There you go. 10 points for Gryffindor.
We have one. I know I have at least one more conversation piece here. It may have been already answered, but I want to make sure it gets in. Thanks. This is very informative. How do we get on the information technology services list? So it seems that this conception of this list.
I know.
Keeps on coming up.
We talk about lists a lot, and that's because there's a lot of lists. And again, it really is a question of what you do, what the size of your firm is, how long have you had any contracts before? It really is. There's a bunch of different criteria that we can point you in the right list. Towards the right direction, rather. Feel free to look onto our site, and kind of there is information pretty much on all of these, so we're not hiding anything. But again, this is government speak sometimes, so it might be easier just to sit down with us or call us and kind of help us or have us help you point you in the right direction. But that's an excellent question, Lisa.
And we should mention that we do have a call center that you can call at any time. It's a 1-800-811-1148, and that they are procurement people as well, and they can lead you down the right path, especially for professional services. That's a question that we get asked a lot. So I'd encourage you to use that service for sure. And I think, Andrea, you already...
Yes, they're excellent. They really are, and great.
Got another question here quickly, as time is running thin. In the procurement process for the federal government, is there any consideration or points given towards businesses that are social enterprises on top of being Black owned? Good question.
Mm-hmm. That is an excellent question. Yeah, I know. And it's one that we've been trying to figure out, if I'm being perfectly honest. It's one that we've been trying to figure out exactly the best way to package that as making that like something that you can actually understand what we mean by social procurement and what qualifies and what we're looking for and all that. Yes, I mean, the short version is there's a bunch of different policies and directives, without getting into government speak too much, in government to try to push procurement folks, like people actually do the contracts, to look for those types of companies. It is 100% a big part of what we do internally at OSME, like our office. We do the education to say, look, there are a whole bunch of, like, if you're talking about green, for example, there's a whole bunch of different like green oriented companies in this specific space that you might want to look at. So there's, without getting into it, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we want to be getting into more social procurement, and different contracts have different characteristics and criteria. But it's a bit more of a case-by-case basis. But generally speaking, we try to be a lot more involved in that.
Yeah. And I'm going to say there's a wonderful organization here in the Black community that specializes in social enterprise. SETSI, SETSI is their acronym, and they might be SETSI.ca or SETSI.org. And they do a lot of seminars on social procurement, not just social enterprises and everything within that ecosystem in the Black community. So feel free to check out SETSI. Let me see if I can find their link and put it in the chat.
I'm also going to put up, and I want to make sure I have this right, the website address, and also the call center phone number is 1-800-811-8148. Is that correct?
No, 1148.
1148. Okay, let me change that right now. 1148. And put it up on the screen. All right, so we got that corrected. And we'll put that up. So this is the correct information. So don't look at the first banner, folks. The second one, this is the correct information here. So again, if you don't get it now or you don't screenshot capture it right now, watch the replay and it'll be up for a little bit. Andrea?
Yes, I'm putting the SETSI link in the chat.
Okay, I'll put it up. Actually, we've got good people right there. There it is.
It's
one of our viewers has it up on the screen right now.
Okay. And please excuse my bad spelling there.
No, it's okay. It's all right. That's fantastic. Yeah. So any more questions, folks? Because, I think we do have another one here. You had mentioned that you have different regional offices across Canada. Is it better to contact an office that is closer to our location? I'm in Alberta.
Yes, that's an excellent question. Honestly, we're happy to help whoever, whenever. It doesn't really matter. However, yes, we have a Western office, and they're based in all three of the Western provinces, so Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and as well as the territories. So that information is on our website, canada.ca/OSME. That's our Western office. So if you, for any reason, but like any absolutely valid reason that you want to reach out to your local office, of course, please do. They are equally as happy to help you out.
Yes. And I do want to do a shout out to Jebs. she's a friend of mine in Western Canada, and she's a city councillor out there, and she's very active in the Black community and helps a lot of people. So I'm so excited to see her here and taking the time to be with us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the question.
I think that is it for questions because we're right near the top of the hour. Andrea, close it out and do thank our wonderful guests.
Yes, I do want to thank this wonderful OSME team for all the information they've given us. We'll be sending out for the people who signed up, and you can go to our link and sign up. For the next session, it will be more in detail, all these things that Louise and the whole team was mentioning, how you can get on that list. So we'll be going through all of that in 2 hours. And then the next day you can sign up to be on the list and you'll be done and you'll be bid ready, as they say. So please join us next time. We thank again the team, and thank you, Dr. Vibe. You're so wonderful. Thank you for your time and your hosting. And thank you everyone for participating and listening in. And please share the recording with your friends so that they can know more about how they can do business with the government and build our community.
Have a good day, everybody. Take care and be safe.